Good morning to you, my friends, or good evening, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements. This is the part 6 in a unique sharing titled Deadman Walking, Freedom Never Dies, 11 Emerging Life Lessons in Facing Mortality, Death. I hope you're well today, wherever you may be. Today's sharing, lesson 6, art as life, life as art. Becoming the madman that you are, creating from that radical, uncensored, crazy, beautiful place that's uniquely you. The absolute opposite of obedience to tyranny, obedience to conformity, obedience into the faceless sameness of dictatorship and totalitarianism, the opposite of servitude, of slavery, forced or complied with. Art, unique art, uncensored heart art, soul, visioning, beautiful truthness from you. Not necessarily on a canvas or a stage or a flat screen or a camera, whatever, but the way in which you, we, me mock death. I guess that's the word, mock mortality, mock old age, mock disease, mock death, satirize it back into its nothingness through courageous heart art that walks in style, that talks in unique cadence to the truth of your own uninhibited, inarticulate way of being, the way you chop and walk and talk and move and bathe and all the things that we do in a day. Art is what? Zest, power, creativity, empowerment, not observational presence of transformational needs. Taking the pandemic, the mundane out of this thing called being. Welcome aboard today. The first 5, bring God into the room. Number 2, grace under pressure. 3, the quality of consciousness is everything, the way we inhabit the continuum, the life stream called uniquely you. 4, liberate your freedom. Do not let fear take hold. When it arises, do all that we can to resonate, quiver, become empowered in our vulnerability, to push it away, not to deny it, but to live, to make it more conscious, to take the fear out of fear. And 5, only you, yesterday, only you, reasoning power, relativity, and radical trust. And today, lesson 6, art. Art is life. Life is art. What does that mean to me? Essence days develop a fascination with consciousness, with sex, with creative freedom, with innovative Dhamma. Build special powers. Engage the flow. No resistance play. Creating from your core. You are unique, remember that. Abide in the sanctity of you. Using your liberty, drop the rest. This is how I talk to myself. Anoint everything with your own special characteristics. Baptize your integrity with adventurous wonderment. If not who, you, who, when, now. Dying is our birthright. I tell myself, do it as frequently as needed to drop unnecessary things, thoughts, people, behaviors, and illuminate the elusive world of the subconscious with your own fearless embrace. The recipe for a madwoman, a madman of your own creation, perpetually advancing your own heart-centric ideas, unique to you until you die. This is how I talk to myself, now more than ever. I was thinking this morning that this death thing, it's so ubiquitous, right? There are no exceptions, zero. Immortality is anathema to the fabric of samsara. There may be perpetuity of conditions without centrality, but mortality is baked in. There's that place in me that goes, what were you expecting? What isn't a fatal diagnosis? Take the fatality, take the despair, take the wrongness. It's just propaganda, God's propaganda, or the devil's misinformation trying to seduce you into the confines of fear and conformity and puppetry and servitude, especially self-servitude, to live in obedience with the dictates of ordinary. Mad woman, madman means to break out of the conformity of all in venerating structures and belief systems, people, places, events, and memories and conditions. Make the unconscious as conscious as possible if it's cool for you. Otherwise, keep it down. Who needs to integrate everything down there? It's infinite. Wildness on the terrain of your own ability. I was thinking, I just can't get it out of my mind, and one of the famous, for me, discourses that speaks to me from the teachings attributed to the Buddha, of a woman, I think her name was Kema, a magnificent angel who, born into wealth and status and beauty, had that very refined artistic aesthetic of cool, it said. And she came across the Buddha in a forest with monks and nuns, and the Buddha and she had this little moment of sapio-psychic interrelatedness, where they both felt each other's minds. And it said in the sutta that the Buddha felt into Kema, where she may be holding back from the deeper resonant truth of who she really is, and where her beauty does not perish with time. And so it said in this sutta, the Buddha, through his own capacity, the psychedelic capacity, the meditative capacity, created an image that only she and he could see in this ubuntufied space of magnificence. And there, within 90 seconds, it said, perhaps maybe even shorter, this being that the Buddha created, this phantasm, this perfectly sculptured on Broadway hit to release Kema from the conditioned predilection to grasping, to form, to beauty that perishes. And there was a musicality to this dance, it said, a deep psychic aesthetic of ease and artistry. And it said that Kema felt into the imaging and intimately, through mindful reflection, felt what she was seeing and placed it upon her own psychic, biological, physical, conditioned impressions of herself. That distillation of insight brought back to self. And she saw this beautiful woman completely age in front of her eyes in 90 seconds, from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. You can go right there with me to 70. It's me, it's you, it's everyone we know, it's the earth. 90. And the image began to contort, bend over. The hair began to fall out, as we all will if we live that long. And suddenly, the beautiful form that the Buddha had created, that only he and she could see in the sapio-eroticized Dharma space of mad woman meets madman in the artistry of transformational shared presence. And Kema sees this woman die right in front of her psychic eye and begins to dissolve and turns to dust and evaporates all within 90 seconds. So rad, so cool, such existential theater. And it's said there on the spot, Kema awakened to the deeper levels of her artistry, her beauty, her freedom, her liberation beyond the attachment to form and time. What was the insight? I gather it was based upon the radicalization of time and how it seems condensed, and it's a bit like slow motion. And so we play within the theater of shared space, and we grasp and we feel, we do all the things that are normal. But all of a sudden we're diagnosed by God with a fatal illness called birth, and all of a sudden we're in the final seconds of our existence, whether it be at the age of 15 or 25 or 75 or 70 or 40 or 36 or 99, they're all within nanoseconds of each other, really. And you go, oh my God, what was I expecting? And you abide either in the idea that I died, or you invigorate the insight into anicca, or impermanence. There's something so beautiful about walking around with Kema. And the insight that I gather from these ancient texts that brought Kema into the radiance of a higher order beauty and freedom, the artistry of insight, brought to the creation of shared space. How well do I walk on the beach? How well do I sit and move? How well do I talk and listen? Understanding that everything is on a fabric of photons, a sea of impermanence. What did you expect? Sure, you're going to die every nanosecond of every little blip of existence. It comes and goes. Wow, it takes the fear out of living. And it releases for me the adrenaline, the intelligence to craft within this radiance of change, just like the Buddha did. In our own creations, create. And I'm thinking, how easy it is to be obedient to predictable forms, blending in, becoming successful on the terms of conventional success, looking at our face in the mirror of Vogue or GQ or some other form of artifice in which we project what we're not, and we fill in the gap of who we would like to be with the idea of blame and judgment and living in the conformity of shame and all the ways in which we live in this weird contortion of I and other based upon judgment and the physics of self-denigration. I remember being in Zagreb during the war, back in 1990-something. And like Sarajevo, but not nearly as severe, surrounded by soldiers, it was a three-way genocide at this point. I remember us going out to nightclubs and underground bars where those in the city gathered at night often to dance, to cry, to talk, to philosophize. How many conversations I would hear of boys and girls deliberating in their own complex way whether to take up the weapon and go to the front lines of the war, of the genocide. to possibly preserve both their dignity and their sanctity and their families and their village and their cities and their countries. And I remember at those times, so many people were doing various substances in order to illuminate things that were not normally available. The subconscious became very real. And people would often, in an unspoken artistry, although genocide and ethnic cleansing and totalitarianism and dictatorship wants to rob us of our uniqueness, wants to steal our creativity, wants to denigrate our capacity to dream in the uniqueness of art and life and literature and theater. We refuse to participate in conformity, slavery, and denigration. Let us all dance uniquely to our own truth. Let us empower the madman and the mad woman and perpetually put forth the creative energy of our own interior beings on the dance floor of shared space. What the fuck else are we doing here in the midst of all this? Accumulating Ethereum or Bitcoin or loot or real estate in the face of a pandemic, in the end game of a planet? Yes, live as best as we can, but at the same time, make our life art and make art life. Take out the fear of the future. That's my mantra. These are things that I'm telling myself. Let me go through this list again. Essence days. They're embedded in my heart. Making my life my art means essence days. High priority. What is the essence of today? What do I want to bring forth? And develop, Alan, a fascination. You're never too young, never too old. Develop and keep developing a fascination with your consciousness and the consciousness of others. And the interface of that shared, beautiful terrain called I and you meeting in the sapiosexual, eroticized ubuntification of consciousness meeting consciousness. None of us transform in a vacuum. That's the Bodhisattva vow. None of us transform in a vacuum. We're all interrelating, but it's not enough just to interrelate by idea. The artistry of that interrelationship is the study of the Bodhisattva vow. I dedicate my life to the reverential artistry of making every encounter that I have with I and other the ultimate theater stage of transformational awakening. Isn't that the vow to become a Buddha? Isn't that the bhavanification of shared space, the nibbanification of shared space, the ubuntification of shared space? All these concepts, they may sound foreign to us, but they all point to me to the shared artistry of Kema meeting the Buddha in this created image of understanding anicca as the fabric of who we are all the time. Imagine right now that the future was felt as a sea of impermanent particles in conditioned lawfulness, and here you and here me sit upon those seas of change as bodies and minds interrelating. What would be the insight that delivers us to the highest order of awakening? Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya dhammino. All things are impermanent in this world. My teacher who took over after Mahasi Sayadaw, my preceptor, died, as people came and walked around his body for those 7 days after he died, before he was cremated, all that we could hear, time after hour after day, anicca vata sankhara upadavaya dhammino upatichawa nirjanti te samvupasamosukho. All conditioned phenomena are changing. Be a madman on the canvas of creative change. Liberate yourself from fear, greed, and delusion while you can. I'll never forget Zagreb and the people. From my heart to yours, thank you. Let me close here, keeping it short. Bring God into the room, grace under pressure. The quality of consciousness is everything. Liberate your freedom. Don't let fear take hold. Only you, reasoning power, the relativity of love, of compassion. Be nuanced in the authenticity of subtlety. Take the ideals out and live in the opening to these new vistas of virginal presence in shared space. What does it mean to bring the unconscious, the subconscious to luminous awareness? Embrace, include, hold, release. Embrace, include, hold, anoint, and release. Essence days develop a fascination with consciousness, sexuality, creative freedom, and the Dharma. Build special powers and share them. Engage your flow. No resistance play. Creating from your core. Not predictable patterns of conformity for hoped for views or likes or swipes or applause. Screw it all. Do it because it's real. What better time than now? You are unique. Dance to your own rhythm. No two of us will kiss alike. No two of us will hold hands alike. No two of us will make love in the same way. Why are we living in the tradition of dogma? Take the paralysis out of being. That's art. Wow, the way you sit, the way you walk. I remember being in a monastery, seeing 500 monks sitting in the hall. And every one of them were sitting, differently. And when I would listen to their interviews with their teacher, because I could sit in and listen, every one of them had a different experience. And even the way in which they heard the same technique, they heard it differently, they applied it differently. The Dharma is unique to the mind it interrelates with. Dharma art. The Bodhisattvic vow is the artistry of transformational freedom. Why not bring that Dharma art into the unique creation of uncensored naturalness? What did you expect, Alan? Yeah, you've been diagnosed with a fatal illness. Yes, there's this incredibly dangerous operation that will save your life, save your life. They don't tell you a lot, just like the vaccination, of the adverse effects from this demonstrative open heart surgery with 10 people for 12 hours on an operating table. Talk about adverse effects from a vaccination. It's like, hello, I don't think I'm going to go down that road just quite yet, not ruling it out, but I'm going to save my life through the Dharma by taking the fear out of dying and taking this deep propaganda that the future is preferable to the quality and the radiance and the quality of consciousness. Isn't that everything? I can't stand, frankly, pharmaceutical drugs. I don't like anything at all that clouds my mind or artificially enhances it. I like knowing that I can play in the deepest recesses of my own interior kema, meeting the Buddha in creating formations that release me from my own fear. Isn't that the Dharma? Isn't that mindfulness? Abide in the sanctity of you. Using your liberty, drop the rest. Anoint everything with your own special characteristics and powers. Baptize, I've thought, your own integrity, Alan, with the adventurous wonderment of your own desire systems. Don't walk in lockstep to others. Hold them in the intimacy of respect for who they are. not who they can be for you. So many of these teachings that sound like cliches or poems or whatever, all coming back to me in more rigorous intensity than ever before. It's really challenging to sleep at night. My mind is not active, but it's so creatively sensitive. It's taken decades to get to the terrain of this level of sensitivity. Treasure your consciousness. Treasure your capacity to feel yourself in breath, out breath. Treasure the power of your own mindfulness. We talk about being in the moment, the now. What does it feel like? People talk about ideas, but what does it feel like? If we could only get closer to the feeling, way down, deep and up and everywhere, called our soul being released into the atmosphere of life. Dying is your birthright, Alan. Dying is your birthright. No two of us will live alike. No two of us will die alike. Dying is our birthright. And do it as frequently as you need to release unnecessary thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings, behaviors. Drop addiction. Even to becoming, even to the future. Illuminate the elusive world of the subconscious with fearless embrace. I mean, there's so much that's coming through right now because, you know, the immediacy and the urgency of conversations and medical prognoses and healthcare workers and the angels from hospice and all the right to body, the right to choice. There's so much information, and you really, for me personally, I must keep illuminating the subconscious that's coming through and to normalize it, to harmonize with it, to move with it, to dance with it, to gamify it. And the mad woman in you, the madman in you, where you're perpetually putting forth your own unique ideas until you die. Rave on, mad woman. Rave on, madman. Rave on, as Van Morrison said, rave on to the Holy Ghost. Rave on to the Holy Spirit, right? Isn't that the Spirit? Could you imagine a whole room of hospice people around the world and they're feeling in their own edge? Rave on in the artistry of your own transformational beauty. Take the fear out of this process of transitioning. I think collectively we're participating in a unique paradigm shift from fear into a coexistence with fear, but a willingness to courageously push that fear aside and walk into the atmosphere of unlimited creative possibility, of fearlessness. Let me end with a couple of processes that are very unique to me. I can't get enough of the concept, there is no right way to live. There is no right way to die. By oneself alone is one purified. By oneself alone is one defiled. Impermanence is our nature. There is a freedom that only you can give yourself. There's a freedom that only you can give yourself. I'm going to breathe into that for a minute. Alan, there's a freedom that only you can give yourself. I have a four I call it my four noble truths in a way. They're very personal, and I'll share them. Many of you know that all of the lessons I'm learning are found in the concept of rebirthing, which is the opposite of dying. I'm a believer in heaven. I'm a believer in dimensionality. I'm a believer in the nuministic, the psychic, the clairvoyant, the telepathic. I'm a believer in the transform. I'm a believer in bodies and minds and intimacy. I'm a believer. But I'm more of a feeler into the frequencies of the intelligences that bring me into rebirthing as an experience of shape-shifting consciousness in form through the art of life and life as art. The raving on of your own mad woman, your own mad man. And to me, rebirthing means bhavana, the beautification of the mind stream. What are the qualities of my artistry? What are the qualities that I want to paint with? Grace and courage, circumspect and authenticity, resilience, humor, creativity, respect, modesty, transparency. There's so many. What are these colors on the palette of my consciousness? They're found in the concept of bhavana, a Buddhist Pali concept that means the beautification of the thought, mind, consciousness stream, an empowerment of your unique aesthetic to bring artistry to bhavana. The way in which we create meals, the way in which we bathe, the way in which we walk and talk and sit and move and make love, bhavana. The poetry of your own unique style of dancing and sitting and moving. There is no one way. And to live in that is to take death out of the form for me. Rebirthing as a concept. Again, coming back down to a relationship to your own belief systems. That's a lot of what's going on for me. And rebirthing is the definitive paradigm that I bring myself into to practice my Dhamma, primarily through the bhavanification of consciousness. The quality of consciousness being everything. And next is the nibbanification, which is not just the beautification of consciousness, but nibbana, for those of you who know in the Buddhist tradition, means unconditional freedom. It goes anywhere from the depth of authentic feeling, mindful feeling, to the absence of fear, and feeling the absence of fear and the texture of that level of nuanced balance. Bringing unconditionality. It's so crazy at this point to know that, and you know as well as I do, you too are going to die. It's like, okay, wow, why are you reminding me of something? Because it just brings you so close to the poignancy of the kiss, of the hand to hold, your own and another. It brings you so close to why hold on to anything, even your identity, even your everything. And so Nibbana is this mantra reminder for me of do things with the grace of release. Provide meals for your friends and your family with the grace of unconditional love and giving. The word unconditional. It needs no accounting, no receipts involved. I do what I do because it's the art of my love. I'm not looking for reciprocity. Is that too much of an ideal? and Ubuntu. I can't get enough of how we're in this together. Although you die and I'm there at your bedside from afar or near, I die and you're at my bedside or from afar or near. We're in this together, but you don't die when I die. We're in this strange, lawful relativity with unique and common characteristics that define the process that we share called life. Anicca vata sankhara, all things are changing. Anatta, all things are empty of centrality and permanency. Hold on to this and you'll suffer, dukkha. These principles are so rad. Ubuntu, that breathtaking, timeless, existential concept of intimate mutuality. We're all intersecting bubbles that aren't separate. And we keep living in the organic mirroring back to each other of information that helps us awaken from the dream of separation. I think of the Bodhisattva vow as I close today, and the artistry of that, the theology of that concept to me is that I refuse to participate in any event, inside and outside, where I knowingly self-denigrate and or denigrate other. I call that ahimsa, harmlessness, the pursuit of harmlessness, and the transformational intelligence to keep transforming, pushing back, including whatever the intelligences are required to transform every state of mind, every sensation, every perception, as much as humanly possible, inside and outside, at the confluence of the senses, meeting life outside and inside together there. And I refuse to participate in obedience, conformity, fear, delusion, self-shame, mockery with a denigrating filter, anger, violence. Yes, they're all human. Yes, they're all relative. Reasoning power points to the relativity of everything. Rage may very well be on the spectrum of compassion. You feel so demonstratively about other, yet there isn't the compassion to see the suffering in the other. You're outraged by the other, not understanding the unique existential trauma of a mind who doesn't understand its own subconscious. Let me end. Bringing God into the room, grace under pressure. The quality of consciousness is everything. There is a freedom that only you can give yourself. Keep on pushing the sky away. Liberate, liberate, liberate. Art is life, life is art. Impermanence is our nature. Rebirthing. Bhavana. Nibbana. Ubuntu. The bodhisattvic artistry. A commitment to engaging all phenomena with the transformational power and purpose that gives us Dharma meaning. Therein lies where I cannot die until I have completed my engagement in this continuum towards my own personal unique goal, which is ultimately to be reborn in the company of the Buddha-to-be, Maitreya, into Sita dimension, known as one of the 6 dimensions of the Deva worlds, with my samsaric sangha. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not. And from there take birth as a human and to be in a Buddha sasana, the aspiration in my rebirthing process, navigating samsara in the continuum, birth after birth after birth, rebirthing, till I navigate exactly to the environment of my own aditant, my own deep chaitana, my own deep determination, my own personal vow to my own integrity, to be reborn in the company of a Buddha. I want to hear a Buddha teach. I want to hear the interrelationship of a Buddha with a Kema. I want to see these phantasms. I would like to attain all the dimensions of psychic power. I'd like to meet you, lover. I'd like to meet you, father. I'd like to meet you, son and daughter. I'd like to be in the company of all these men and women that live in the radiance of their own unique aditant, their own determination, to live in the artistry of their own unique creation in this great, vast thing called samsara. Purpose, taking death out of the story, even in the face of genocide in Bosnia and in Croatia. My friends there said, Alan, dance in your own unique way as defiance, your own existential rebellion to totalitarianism in our country, in this universe. Rebel against conformity. Be unique in your artistry. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. A little bit of a mad rave of a madman talking to mad women in this weird, wild, crazy wilderness called life. But let us remember, be a mad woman of your own creation, perpetually advancing your own unique ideas until you die. Amen. From my heart to yours, have a beautiful day. God willing, see you tomorrow.